Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be long distance turning into more. Well, I've got an email here from a viewer who's doing a good job of attracting a woman to him to the point where she's starting to show up and fly or drive to come see him. And I've been seeing this question quite a bit lately. People are like, what about long distance? What about long distance? How do you attract a woman long distance? So here's an email from a guy who's been applying what I teach with a woman that doesn't live near him. But before we get into it, I have a quote I'd like to share with you. It's obviously one of the key points of wisdom that you need to understand and master in order to do this successfully, not only with women that are long distance, but just women in general. And it says, having the space and freedom to be yourself and create the life you really want is essential to your overall happiness. When you feel comfortable in your own skin and your ability to be yourself, it makes it easy to allow members of the opposite sex to see you as attractive and want to be around you. Loving in a way that makes the one you love continue to feel free is the key to allowing them the freedom to choose you. When you allow others to choose you at their own pace, you set the conditions for life and your relationships to be effortless. Two complete people sharing their completeness. So let's get into this guy's email. He says, hey coach, I had to write in to share an experience that might be a confidence builder for the guys who lose faith in your ideas when the going seems good and then they get friend zoned, or maybe they can't act upon your coaching because of past habits. They need to go by the book while they learn to fit your ideas into their personal lifestyle. That's a good point. The key is not to become a robot and take everything I say and try to say it exactly the way I say it, but to put it into your own words, but to not lose any of the meaning behind it. He says, I teach personal development and I was a believer in your main ideas long ago. Your book and YouTube videos really give me some structure to follow that's amazingly helpful with women. Letting the women talk 80% of the time, staying off the phone except to make dates, keeping conversations short, and keeping my texting under control work like a charm all of the time. Yeah, because you probably heard me say more than once that the biggest problem that the average guy has is they do too much texting, they talk too much, and they spend too much time on the phone, and the more they say, the more they tend to say things that turn women off. Because if you're a man who's comfortable with his own sexuality and asking for what he wants, he's going to be direct, he's going to get right to the point. And if a woman reaches out to him, he assumes, oh, she must want to see me, and he makes that happen without sitting there and talking and feeling like you got to talk on the phone for an hour to create rapport. If she's calling you, if she's reaching out to you, you should always assume it's because she wants to see you and make that happen. Remember, women are not going to come right out and ask you out most of the time when they call you. What they're doing is they're putting themselves into your orbit. They're making it easy for you to make the next logical step happen. But at the end of the day, they want to follow your lead. They want to feel your strength and your fearlessness in going for what it is that you want. He says, since June, I've been working on a long-distance relationship with a woman who expresses interest in moving to my city out west. Well, that's definitely a good sign, because at the end of the day, if you're in a long-distance relationship, somebody's eventually going to have to move, and if that doesn't happen, then obviously your chances for success long-term are not very good. I had a woman that I dated that was from the UK. It was like that. She was in the process of going to college to become a chiropractor, and I just was simply at the point where because of that, we were going to actually end up seeing each other less and less, and I just didn't want to do a long-distance relationship where I would maybe only see her for a few days at a time every few months. That wasn't acceptable to me, and it was as hard as it was, and much as I love this girl, I just didn't want to do it, and I wasn't in a place where I wanted to get married, and she certainly wasn't in a place because she was in the process of getting a 4-year degree. And we looked at her going to school in the States, but because a lot of the credits wouldn't transfer, it was going to add another 2 years. So it would have taken her 6 years to get her chiropractic degree if she'd have chosen to come over to the States. And so just like sometimes that happens, sometimes your goals and your values are just not aligned. and it's tough, but that's part of having strength. Inner strength is knowing and looking at that and not trying to force things to move along a certain path. If your goals and your values aren't aligned, I know it's tough sometimes, but sometimes you just have to let that person go. He says, she's on the Atlantic coast now, and I'm 51 and she's 38. Long distance turned into short distance when business took me out east. I arranged to meet her for a trip to the beach one afternoon. She was excited to meet, but expressed concern. Now listen to how he handles this, because you always want to have a great answer. Because if you've read my book, you know that women have a tendency to take little problems and make them into big ones. And the man's job is to take those big problems or those things that she's stressing about or worrying about and shrink them down in their small part. And it's all about allowing her the freedom to be who she is without making her feel like she's going to lose her freedom. And this guy does a beautiful job of how he handles it. He says she was excited to meet but expressed some concern about what would happen if the chemistry wasn't there when we met in person. That's definitely an understandable fear. And so she throws that out there, and look how he handles it. He says, I just reassured her that we didn't need to think or do anything but act and speak according to how we feel, and the rest would take care of itself. That's a beautiful way to answer that. In other words, what he's basically saying, let's just hang out and have fun together. Let's stay in the present moment, and everything else will be fine. And his next statement was, everything would be fine. He said you could feel the relief in her voice. Because now what she sees is like no matter what happens, it's going to be a pleasant experience. Even if there is no chemistry. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you meet somebody in person. You know, you met over online and you talked on the phone. You had a decent conversation on the phone. But when you actually get together physically in person, it's just, the vibe just isn't there. And that's not something that you can force. It's either there or it's not. He says, when my train pulled up to the beach, there she was. It was a really comfortable moment because when Skyping with her, I've been practicing your ideas about how to talk with women. We had a wonderful day and evening at the beach. Because at the end of the day, and this is not just with women, this is human beings in general. When you really listen to somebody and you look them in the eyes and you're actually interested and what they have to say, and you're asking them personal questions about their life, what they're passionate about, the things that they enjoy doing. We all love to have somebody who's looking into our eyes and listening intently with excited interest. And if you're into a girl, it's really easy to do that. But if you're not that into her and you're just thinking, hey, I want to get into her pants, it's hard to fake that. But it's easy when the chemistry is there because things just kind of flow like butter. He says, the next time we talked on Skype, she recalled that afternoon at the beach as one of the best days of her life. Holy shit, dude, you knocked that out of the fucking park. Good job. And she said, in quotes, it's like you read my manual on what I like in a man. Because you probably heard me say this. It's like, especially the female clients that I have, that's one of the hardest things, is just finding a man who actually acts like a fucking man and knows what to do and how to interact with her and how to appreciate her, how to talk to her, how to open her up. And it's so rare and it's so refreshing when a woman meets a guy that gets it. Just like, I mean, look at what she said. She said, it's like you read my manual on what I like in a man. And all women are pretty much the same when it comes to that. And that's why when you apply the things that I teach, you're going to set yourself apart from 99.9% of the guys that she's going to meet out there. And that way, when you meet someone you have real chemistry, she's going to make that extra effort to keep you in her life because she realizes there's something very special and unique and rare about you. He says, you deserve that compliment as much as I do, Coach. Well, thank you, but at the end of the day, you applied it successfully. He says, what I'm doing is working very well, but I've not heard any women I date speak up so strongly about the subject. He said the next week she booked a ticket for an 8-day vacation with me here in Denver. Meantime, she blows up my phone and inbox with communications. I'm tempted to respond immediately sometimes or answer every note. He says, but I resist and instead respond at a convenient time by keeping on subject or just reminding her how great it feels to hear from her. That's awesome. That's what you really want to do, because it allows you to remain mysterious, but also not get caught up in chit-chatting too much on the phone, because when you start to do that, when you're pretty much available 24/7, you become easy. You become too available. You become kind of boring to her. And at the end of the day, as a man, you should be busy, focused on your purpose and your mission in life. And at the end of the day, it is a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And so when you take your time getting back to her, I mean, what if you're in a meeting? What if you're traveling? What if you're working and you're busting your ass and you can't really stop? Because there was a study that I read a while back that, like, when you're working on something at the office and you're intently focused on it, and then somebody comes and interrupts you, it takes like a half hour for you to kind of get right back into that same vibe that you were. Even if you only get interrupted for 2 or 3 minutes, it's like it takes like a half hour to really get back to that place where you're kind of in the zone. And if you've ever been at work and you've been focused on something, you've been really crushing it and making good process and grinding it out, and all of a sudden somebody interrupts you to chit-chat or ask you a question about something, it's like your focus and the energy that you had, that vibe is kind of gone. It kind of evaporates, and it takes you time to get back into it. So he says, I save the significant conversation for Skype dates. And that's good. It's like, because if you're not going to see each other for a week or two, and she wants to chat on Skype, then what you can do is you can make a date on Skype where you can video Skype, and you can chat for a while. Maybe you're going to talk a little bit longer, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it happens to be, especially if she's already got a ticket bought to where she's going to come see you, because this is what I've experienced. One of my girlfriends I dated, she lived in the UK and I was in the States, and she liked to talk a lot because I was her rock. I was the source of masculine strength in her life, and so when she always wanted to talk to me, most of the time on a daily basis, sometimes it'd be just little through IMs and stuff like that, and other times we would actually have longer conversations on Skype. But when I got to the point in the conversation where I was kind of getting bored of it, I mean, not that I was bored of her, but I just didn't want to sit there and chit-chat for forever. I didn't wait until she got bored of it also. I was the first one to say, hey, babe, it's been great hearing from you. I love you. It's so awesome to hear your sweet voice again. I can't wait to see you. I'm really excited. I just can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks when I pick you up at the airport. Because this girl, when I would go to like the luggage area to pick, where she would meet, to pick up her luggage after she got off the plane, is I would kind of like hide, and so she wouldn't see me, and just kind of observe her and watch her. And then I would try to sneak up on her sometimes, and then when she would turn around and we would lock eyes, she would like literally start jumping up and down, and she'd have the biggest fucking smile on her face. And it's like, I still remember it to this day, even though it was many, many years ago. It was just a beautiful thing. She was just like a little kid in a candy store, or like like a kid that's like getting ready, ready to open Christmas presents, and she's just jumping up and down like a jumping jack, and she jumps into my arms and she hugs me, and she just wants to touch and be held. It was one of the beautiful memories from that particular relationship. So he says, and then he says, P.S. here, he says, I've purged the women who sabotage my dates from my queue, and you made a great video newsletter about that. So, like I said, he's doing a great job. He's setting dates, and if she wants to talk in between those times, he's making Skype dates with her, because especially if you're on one end of the country and another, you're not going to be seeing each other every single weekend. But when she's reaching out to you, and then you're making dates to talk on Skype, you're the first one to leave those conversations as well. It's like it's like the old adage in show business: you always leave them wanting more. Just like all of the TV shows that you watch, there's always at the very end of the episode there's a cliffhanger. There's some kind of unresolved tension that you got to tune into next week to see how it's resolved and what happens next. And he's doing a beautiful job. Textbook. So if you'd like to get my help personally with a challenge or a situation that you're having in your own life, the quickest way is to book a paid phone coaching session. Go to my website, click the products tab, and follow the instructions. I'll talk to you soon.